So this morning we heard about the revolution that SoulCycle has brought to the health and wellness and experience industry. And probably the company's most popular instructor is Akin Akman. So I've been following Akin on social media for a while now. I don't know exactly how it happened, but people that I follow must have been talking about him. So I started following him. Some of you have attended his SoulCycle classes here at Voices. My sister, who attended this morning, described it to me when she came back in her gym clothes as invigorating, energizing, and authentic, and unlike any spin class she has been to anywhere. But apart from being an inspirational coach and instructor, Akin has his own incredible personal story about he ended up on this path. I met Akin earlier this year in Milan with Trey Laird, and when he shared his story, I asked him if he would share that story here at Voices. So today we're going to talk to Akin about building a champion's mindset. But before I get into the kind of Akin's kind of life philosophy, I wanted to talk a little bit about his personal story and his journey. And Akin, you were born in Turkey, right?
I was born in Miami.
In Miami, but
Yeah.
then you moved back to Turkey.
Yeah,
So
to be American.
go back to that time when you were, really young. We saw some of those videos in Miami when
Yeah.
you were like, how old were you in those videos?
7.
7.
7 years old, yeah.
And for people who know Akin's workout routines, and you saw that kind of merit, like he's been doing some of these exercises from a young age.
Yeah. So I trained at IMG Academies at Bollettieri in Bradenton, Florida, with Nick Bollettieri, who I built my career around the way he built himself and his academy, and I didn't even realize it until I had to come to terms with being a coach.
Yeah.
I'll explain that later.
Yeah.
But I basically started playing tennis when I was 5 in Turkey, and I was good, and I was really into it. And so my father, so whenever he into something, he'll like start reading about it, and he read about Nick Bollettieri in Florida. So he's like, I got to take my kids there. So me and my sister, she's 9, I was 7. We went to Florida, and at the time they weren't taking players on that are like 7 years old. They took like 9 and up, and so you had to be a certain age at or a certain level at a certain age to even be considered to go there. So then my mom met Nick, and then he took me into his group, and then we started training like that, 8 hours a day, every day. So,
Did you have classes as well?
when you're full time, you would go. So I'd also do extras. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. And run like suicides on the courts. There was 50
What's
courts.
a suicide?
They're basically like, so think of a tennis court. There's doubles line, singles line, the service line, and then the singles and doubles line.
Right.
So you run from each line and you touch back every time, and then I go to the next
At
court.
4 in the morning.
Yeah, and then I had a little like weight training for that age, so it's not that intense. And then I'd go to school from. You didn't have the gym class or the like homeroom, so you'd train you'd do history, science, math, English, and then so school was from 8:30 till 12:30, and then we'd come back, eat, and then 1 to 6 train, and then we had like a match play session, and then like study hall, dinner, and then sleep.
How many hours of sleep every night?
We would get I wake up early, so maybe like 6 to 8.
6 to 8 hours. So you're still getting good sleep, but your day is completely
full.
planned out
Yeah.
at the age from 7 until, for years it was like that.
Yeah. For years and years.
And this was all with the goal of becoming a professional tennis athlete.
Yeah.
Talk
so,
about that. Why tennis?
Well, my dad was really into it at the time.
Yeah.
But also I really loved it, and I loved training, so I loved being at the academy. Some kids didn't always like it, and there's like a little, like they talk about it in a different way than I do. But yeah, everybody in the academy wanted to be a professional athlete. So it was this whole community of kids, like-minded kids and adults that wanted their kids to grow up to be number one. So like Maria Sharapova was one of my friends who I trained with, and Tatiana Golovin, and Andre Agassi went there, and Jimmy Connors was there, and Serena and Venus Williams, they were there. They weren't there full time, but Andre was. So like everyone would come in and out of the academy, and it was just a community of people who wanted this higher level of athletic capabilities.
So this continued for 10 years, and then
Yeah.
then what happened?
So I was going back and forth to Turkey at the times, and then I was full time in like third grade, fifth grade, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, and then so back and forth, and then I had to go home because one of my roommates passed away at the academy. So then my mom was like, "You have to come home to Turkey," and then I was playing there, and I went to again to Boston with my coach. So it was always back and forth. And then in Boston, where I was training, I got 2 herniated discs in my lower back from not taking care of my body well enough.
Were you working yourself too hard?
I think you have to take like the recovery just as seriously as the training. So one hip was more flexible than the other. So every time I would twist to hit my backhand, I was putting pressure on my lower back that I didn't know I was doing. And I would just ignore the pain because it was starting to hurt a lot. But you have this whole mentality. You guys talked about it yesterday, actually, that if you stop training, somebody else is training harder than you, and they're going to beat you. So you're like, I can't stop training. So then I couldn't walk for almost a year.
You couldn't walk?
I have 2 herniated discs. So I basically went to physical therapy and rehab for 3 to 4 months. And then like in high school, I was like, just couldn't really do anything. I couldn't carry a backpack. So it wasn't like I had to wheelchair around, but I couldn't do anything that I did for my whole life.
So as someone who's like from 4 in the morning
Yeah.
to whatever, 10 p.m. at night, every day for 10 years,
Yeah.
and you put all that energy into this goal,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, not only can't you like do your routine that you were doing every day
Yeah.
for years, you couldn't even walk.
Yeah. So
How did that feel?
Well, it was the overtraining and the not taking care of myself, but I was also, again, away from my family, but this time I didn't like where I was in Boston, not as much as the academy. And so it was just like a stressful environment. And,
What was different between the academy and Boston?
Well, so I never talk about this. So in Boston, I was staying with a family, so it was kind of like a exchange type thing, but it wasn't. Their kids got to go to where I was going for free because I was there, and I was also coaching. That's when I started coaching at 16 at that academy, and that's like Nick Bollettieri also has an alliance there, and the family just was not for me.
You just didn't feel safe?
No, it was like it was a little bit stressful, and but I was like, no, I came here to train. I have to get to where I want to be. Like I have to do this, and I committed, so I'm going to see it through. But the moment I went back to Turkey for the summer, because that was my senior year of high school, so when I went back to Turkey, then the back got better, and like it was like a whole mindset thing too there. So I started thinking about it that way, that early, because I mean tennis is very mental. I talk about it in class. I've been playing. Think about since I'm 7 years old till 17. I got hurt, and then I came back and played again. But I can only remember 1 or 2 matches that were perfect, right? So you have it in your head that everything has to go so perfect, and if something went off, I would go crazy on the court, and I beat myself. Even if I have a better serve, my serve was 155 miles per hour at 15. Better forehand, better volleys. I've been doing it my whole life. The mindset would keep me back. So if I started losing, it was always because I was beating myself. So just like that understanding of everything kind of just like sparked something, and it was just like a build up from there.
So, but around the age of 17, you came to the realization that that tennis career that you had been aiming for was not possible.
Well, so I came back from that,
Yeah.
and then at 19 again I got hurt. I have
Oh, you got hurt again.
yeah, I have internal bleeding in the right wrist and bruising of the bone, which took longer to heal than if it was broken, and that wasn't from overplay. I just fell. So, so then that happened, and then I was like, because at the time I went back to, it's like all over the place, back to Florida to IMG to Bollettieri to teach there. So I was teaching with Nick Bollettieri in his team of coaches, and that's where I hurt my wrist. And right before I did that, I was playing with like Kenny Shikori and hitting with all the pros that were coming to the academy and building back up. But then you lose your sponsors. You lose, like, I had a scholarship to FAU, where I went to college, and I couldn't play, so the coach kind of like took that away too. It was just like a whole mess of things. And then I had to kind of figure out what to do next. You talk about identity. You talked about it yesterday. My identity was I was a tennis player, right? And nothing else mattered. And I loved it. I wouldn't go out. I wouldn't go to parties with my friends. I'm like, I have to train. Like my sister would have friends over and I'd be running on the treadmill. And they're like, what's wrong with your brother? So I had to kind of come to terms with what I wanted to do. So I got scouted to model. I moved to New York, and I was coaching still tennis, and I had started teaching spin and boot camps at Crunch in Miami. So I just like switched over to New York, but I didn't want to be a coach fully. I loved it, and it gave me so much fulfillment to like have so many people thank you for so many different things that you have changed in their lives that you have no idea that you were able to touch that aspect of their lives. So it was so fulfilling, but I wanted to be number one athlete and like the star kind of, and not the coach. And you kind of saw that as like a negative thing. Meanwhile, I realized this later, I have Nick Bollettieri, who has outlasted generations of number one tennis players that he's coached, and he built a giant, like, incredible academy. You should go see it if you ever go.
I'd love to.
You should meet Nick Bollettieri.
I will. Please introduce me.
I will. Out of a tomato field, and it's like an incredible energy there. It's like the biggest academy in the world, full of kids who want to be pro, or if they don't go pro, they get scholarships to college, and it's insane. There's tennis, there's golf, and like really good. They're top of the game in every sport. There's basketball, there's soccer, there's everything. It's huge.
But being a coach, as you say, wasn't your plan.
Yeah.
And at some point, you know.
Well, I had to like take advantage of all these skills that I worked for my entire life. And honestly, I just did it because I loved it, and it started building so organically because I loved it, and it was so authentic that I was teaching things that I have been doing my entire life. So what happened was, so at Crunch, they wouldn't sub you out and tell people that, hey, this guy's subbing out, don't go to class at 6 a.m. or like, this is the instructor that, that's going to replace him. So they would show up, and I had like at Crunch too, an army of followers. And it happened really quick, actually. I subbed in Miami a class for this popular instructor one time, and it was last minute, and then all of them started following me around in Miami, and then I had my tennis people that came over too. And then when I moved to New York, the same kind of thing happened. And so they were like, Akin, you have to put it on Facebook or something that you're not going to be there at 6 a.m. so we don't show up and you're not there. I'm like, okay. So I did that, and then they were like, and then call us Akin's Army. So I was like, okay, I'll call you Akin's Army. And then they're like, make clothes and do this and do. I'm like, okay, I got you. And then it was like it was a whole buildup of that, and Trey is one of those people that really, I mean, he really gets me and my vision and where I came from. So it just became a network of people helping me out because I was helping them out. And I didn't even think of it that like it could get like to this level. And it was also lucky because at the same time SoulCycle happened. And SoulCycle had already existed 5 years before they recruited me. And I wasn't ready to go before then because I didn't want to make it everything, and they expected you to like be on call and do whatever they ask. And so it was lucky that that changed because SoulCycle really changed the way instructors are seen and valued. At Crunch, I'll tell you guys what I made. I made $55 a class to start, and by the end of the 8 to 10 years I was there, I was making $65 a class.
Wow.
So it was never about that. And then SoulCycle really was like, okay, let's, like Melanie said, like let's
Two out
give
of
them.
200 people that apply for that job get it, right? And they train you and they develop you.
That's how it is now.
Yeah.
But when I started, it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a little different, but they really took care of the instructors, especially the ones that were like performing above and beyond.
Right.
And like I said, I'm like, when I do something, I do it fully. So when I decided to make teaching a full-time thing, I'm teaching still now. I teach 34 classes a week.
So this is easy what you've been doing here.
Yeah, and everyone's like, how do you do it? I'm like, I've been doing it my whole life. So, and then at SoulCycle, I ride through the whole thing, and then I also go train on my own, and
Yeah. So back to this idea of the champion's mindset. There's several parts of it that I want to break down with you. Because first thing is, you can have a plan in life, like you did, and it doesn't work out. What does a champion do in that situation?
So what I like to say is, for me, my back injury wasn't a failure. Like me not becoming a tennis player was not a failure. It was a stepping stone to this new life that I created using those skills. So if you see it like, if you see it as a failure, then that's where your head goes. It's a negative thought. And you're like, why is this happening to me? Where you should be thinking, this is happening for me. So now that I have this knowledge of what you can do to recover from an injury, and I'm more in tune with my body, I can teach that and I can answer your questions of, hey, Akin, like, my knee hurts. Like, it's probably lactic acid buildup. Have you been doing more? You know, so like just little questions that you're able to answer and make people feel safe in your classes and in that environment. So if you look at a tennis player, they train their whole lives. So what differentiates them is their mindset. So like if you think Roger is just like
Roger Federer.
Roger Federer.
We're not on a first name basis yet.
I'm not either. I just call him Roger. So or Maria. They've been able to tap into that early on, like Patrick, right? So they've been able to mature mentally so early on that they see these failures not as a failure, but okay, there's a lesson. What can I learn from this, and what can I apply it to the next thing that I'm going to do? So it's just going to keep building. So if I play you, and your backhand is weaker.
I'm sure my backhand is definitely weaker.
Most people's backhands are weaker. So then I like.
Oh,
okay,
you mean
than
my forehand? Yeah, of course. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Not than me. So
I thought than you. I'm like, well,
no,
definitely
no.
right.
So I'd like play that, and if let's say your backhand got so much better, I have to change my strategy. So it's about being flexible with your approach to things. And like Strauss was saying, it's basically like it doesn't have to happen all at once. You don't have to win. It doesn't have to be the perfect match. Like I was saying earlier, the one perfect match that I remember. Like there could have been way more if I didn't have to be so perfect and like it had to go exactly how I wanted it to go. And then I would have so many more great experiences, and it would be way more fulfilling, and I wouldn't be so hard on myself there. So it's like it's a whole mental maturity that you have to go through and understand that everything is kind of happening for you, and you can build on Like you can learn from everything.
Yeah,
You just have to try.
That can be a breakthrough.
Yeah, it's a breakthrough. And the whole intention part of it, like find what you want. Most people know what they want. They just, they've already planned it out in their minds of how to get there. They're like, oh, I want to have a candle business. This is one of my people that comes to my class. He's like, I love candles. I love crystals. And like, I love Reiki, so one of my clients. And I was like, so why are you trying to be in finance? Like, you love this stuff, so like, you want to build a candle business. She's like, well, yeah. I'm like, and you can put crystals in the candles, and you can like put this on it, and you can have a mantra, and like, so we talk about. It's not just like athletic training. It's so much more than that once you kind of get into it. So I'm like, do that, and now she did it, and now she has a candle business, and she like sold out like of her candles. So it's like, it's these things that people don't. They're too afraid to take the steps to do, and you're so caught up with how things are supposed to be, like you guys have been talking about, that you stop thinking outside the box, and you should always go and follow your heart, because if you're passionate about what you're doing, it draws the right kind of people that you want to touch or that you speak to, and then they can go and do everything they want to do because they're inspired because of what you did and the work you put into it. It's not just that I'm saying these things, I'm doing it. Like I'm teaching the class and doing the class 35 times a week. And then that's how I do it now. And it's become such a fulfilling job. It's not a job. Like I love waking up. I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning. I have a 6 a.m., 7 a.m.
You're lazy
class.
now. Now you're waking up at 5?
I know. So 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and then I get a little break, 9:30, 10:30, I teach, and then I get again at 12:30. And then I get a little break. I'll go lift with my brother.
I've seen that on Instagram.
Yeah, who I got him into it too.
Yeah.
So he's an instructor at SoulCycle now too. And then my sister, I'm trying to make her teach boot camp. She's a tennis player as well. And then I teach again at 6:30, 7:30, and then I pass out. But I live it every day, and I love it, and I'm doing what I love, and it's built into something more. And it didn't happen overnight, and a lot of people think that it's like, oh my God, I want to do what you're doing, and it's going to happen right away. I'm going to go apply to SoulCycle. And I've been teaching for 15 years, and I've been training for 25 years.
Your whole life, basically.
So
there's so many things that you've said that I think are applicable to all of us as individuals, but also as leaders of businesses. And just to recap really quickly, so the champion's mindset is about everything's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so, sometimes even at our company, we're always driving for perfection.
It depends what your definition of it is.
Yeah. But like if you get 80% right, that's still really good, right?
Yeah. And next time you'll do the 90.
Yeah, next time you'll be better. And the second thing is learn from your failures, because those are opportunities to really
see them as lessons.
Yeah.
So it's about changing that mindset. So even like in a room like this where everyone is successful, everyone kind of did the same thing to get to where they are. They had an intention, they have a purpose, they're passionate about it, and they took action.
Yeah.
Right? So what's missing for a lot of people is they see that and they think they're going to do it, and because they want to do it because they want to make the money that
they want the end.
Yeah, they want the end of what happens, but they don't want to put in all the work. So same thing with classes. Like I'll say the same thing over and over again. I'm like, if it's your first time, like don't try to do all the moves. The advanced moves are for the people who've been coming for a long time. Build up, like Strauss was saying, slowly build up, and at first sit down, keep the pace, and then as that builds on a bike, then you stand up and keep the pace, and you're more aware of your body and of what muscles are targeted or firing up. And then out of the saddle, you build endurance. And then once you build that endurance, you start to be able to do little movements that make sense because now you have control of your body and how you're supposed to hold your spine and your glutes. So then you start to do the moves, and all of a sudden, like without even noticing, because time flies by, you're doing all these crazy moves that you thought were like, oh, that guy's crazy. He's asking me to do what? Cross? No. But yeah, so it's a buildup of things, and there's so much more fulfillment once you built it.
Yeah.
Because you guys already have the formula to success, but you've done it to one thing, and you can do that with anything that you want to do. You just have to be open to it. And the more you do it, the more of a habit it becomes, the more of a ritual it becomes, the more you start to get everything you've wanted.
Yeah. So we're out of time, but I wanted to ask one last question, which is Akin's Army, which is kind of amazing. Like, what does the future hold for Akin's Army?
I mean, it's, I like to say it's limitless. It's like...
It's limitless.
Limitless. I mean, it can be anything. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay. Well, stay tuned for
Yeah.
Akin's Army. I have a feeling that there's more to come from Akin. That was really amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.